Whether it's a fond memory of our childhood or modern-day escapism, many of us still hold cartoons in high regard. But no matter what decade you're looking at, you have to admit that some of the cartoon villains are, well, weird to say the least. But that certainly doesn't mean they're bad. They're zany and unique, and as such, stand out in our minds as more memorable. So in their honor, we're going to take a look at the weirdest of the bunch. Dragon Ball Z is known for its cast of lovable and iconic characters. The villains are no exception to this statement. From Cell to Frieza, there's just so many great baddies in this anime show, but the weirdest was without a doubt one of the last villains. In the Buu arc, we're first introduced to Majin Buu. Where previous villains oozed strength and terror, Majin Buu looked more like a fat piece of chewed up pink bubblegum. His story is as bizarre as his appearance. He was hatched by a space wizard in order to defeat Goku by means of absorbing literally everything. Majin Buu isn't evil either per se, he's more like an immature baby, and his naivety and his innocence make his horrible acts that much more just to change into more vicious and sinister forms. Batman, the animated. Some of them are iconic, such as the Joker, but some of them are just plain weird. One of those is Clayface.
Don't you dare patronize me!
What's weird about Clayface is more his story. Before becoming a villain, he was actually a regular old actor named Matt Hagen who got into a car accident. This left him disfigured and in need of treatment. He ended up taking a cream called Renew You per the advice of the corrupt businessman named Ronald Daggett. Daggett promised the cream would restore his looks, but he got addicted to the cream and ended up eating an entire vat of it, transforming him into Clayface. So yeah, Clayface is a tragic, walking piece of really bad medical cream essentially, and it looks like the stuff of nightmares because of it. Vats of chemicals and radiation we get, but turning into this by means of eating cream is just a bit bizarre. But hey, it was another performance by Ron Perlman, so we ain't complaining. Opinions are split when it comes to G.I. Joe and their arch-nemesis, Cobra Commander. Either he and the show are a highlight of the 80s, or the pillar of cheese. Regardless of what you think of the show and the insanely popular merchandise, one thing is for certain, Cobra Commander is kinda weird. We think he was designed to be scary and intimidating, but the end result did not deliver on that promise. He also has a weird obsession with snakes. His lair is a giant snake temple that actually serves no real purpose, and he even speaks in hisses. As it turns out, under the very humanoid body of Cobra Commander is a blue snake man who somehow ran to be the president of the United States. We're not sure what the creators of Cobra. That being said, fans of the cartoon will remember Cobra Commander because he was so bizarre. So in that sense, being a little off the wall makes him harder to forget.
Now I'll never rule the world! I hate this job!
Powerpuff Girls is plenty of fun, full of cute, bubbly characters that are instantly likable, which is why him stands out so much. He's the second primary antagonist for the entire series, after Mojo Jojo, but is arguably way more deranged. This flamboyant demon is always grinning and sports a set of claw hands. His appearance can be described as the devil in drag, as he is wearing a lady's skirt and a pink ruff. His appearance just seems spooky once you start pointing them out. The widow's peak, hooked nose, long ears, and green eyes aren't exactly cute and bubbly like the rest of the show, which is the weirdest thing about him. He clashes so much with the overall tone and artistic style of the show. Kids watching it are in for a nice, silly experience. This crazy and bizarro villain shows up to shake up the established order. Daddy, why is that character so deranged? Good question. I've gotten the memo about historical accuracy. That or they just did not care. Because the Rasputin in the movie makes absolutely no sense. In the movie, Rasputin tries to eliminate the Romanov family but somehow fails in this endeavor and dies himself. He ends up in limbo for over a decade instead of heaven or hell. So we got a hilariously inaccurate portrayal of Rasputin so far, but it gets even crazier with one musical number. In it, Rasputin breaks his undead body in pieces, which results in his head bouncing around while singing. What even is going on here anymore? Oh, the jury's out. This one is weird. Hopefully, no one ever wrote a school paper and used this as a source. You know, we had to give Ren and Stimpy some love on this list, and it comes in the form of the villain Adonis. Adonis, once known simply as Jerry, is a weird pork chop monster thing that lives in the belly button of Stimpy, much like how Little Fluff does for us. Being Ren and Stimpy, things are weird by default, so it's no surprise to learn that Stimpy tries to offer Adonis Linteloaf. The act triggers Jerry, who goes from regular-sized to behemoth in a matter of moments after exclaiming that he hates Linteloaf. He turns into a pork chop monster. Not only that, but the weird giant pork chop that is Adonis actually eats Ren and Stimpy off screen in this episode too. So yeah, those two are toast in that episode. Like most things in Ren and Stimpy, it's weird, makes little sense, and is over the top with madness. So, a regular episode. Inspector Gadget has a whole gallery of memorable and weird villains, but Dr. Claw surely takes first prize for the weirdest. But it has nothing to do with his plans, his voice, or how he looks. In fact, we actually don't know what he looks like. Dr. Claw is literally just that, a disembodied claw. What's more is that Dr. Claw is not a villain of the week, but rather the main antagonist to Inspector Gadget. It is just so weird that we basically only see this villain's metallic hand and forearm throughout the entire series. The closest we've ever gotten to seeing Claw was a silhouette of him lying down, deep in thought. His face was eventually shown 6 years after the show ended in the form of a toy, but does that really count? If you thought Clayface was at all weird, then this Batman the Animated Series villain will make him seem normal. In fact, he may be the weirdest and lamest villain in the entirety of DC Comics. There, we said it. Condiment King started off his run initially as being a henchman for the Joker. You'd think that being so close to the Crown Prince of Crime would have an impact on his future persona, but instead things just got wacky. Whenever he appears, he's often seen as a comic character as opposed to a serious threat like Joker.
I knew you'd catch up to me sooner or later. How I've relished this meeting.
His main thing is to spray his victims with various condiments, such as mustard or ketchup, which sometimes causes, wait for it, anaphylactic shock. While this is a serious thing, chances are he's just causing annoying stains on everyone's clothes. His biggest enemy is probably something that cleans stains or washing detergent. As we await the Netflix reboot of He-Man from Kevin Smith on Netflix, we can look back on the original series. The show was already pretty wacky to begin with, but things are even weirder when we look at the villain. Skeletor is probably more iconic today for being a meme. His voice did not match the design of the character whatsoever. Instead of a bassy and demonic sound, we have a more nasally, high-pitched voice of a schemer. His insult game is also weak, to say the least.
You furry, flea-bitten fool, I'll cover my throne with your hide!
There's also his design. If Skeletor has a skull for a head, why is the rest of his body so jacked? It doesn't make sense, which leads us to wonder how a skull for a head can make facial expressions. Are we overthinking this? Yes. Are these still valid questions? Also, yes. But despite his weirdness, we still think Skeletor is an icon and can't wait to see what he'll look like in the new show.
You pathetic pair of pitiful pinheads!
Krang is, well, weird. Everything about him qualifies as not normal. This is coming from a universe where some turtles grew to human size and learned martial arts from a giant rat, so bear that in mind. Krang is a menacing looking brain with a face in a vat that's attached to a belt around a man's waist. The man isn't even real. When Krang arrived on Earth after being exiled from Dimension X, he formed an alliance with Shredder. In exchange for said alliance, Shredder created an exosuit for Krang to live in. Why Shredder didn't put the brain of Krang into the head of the exosuit is a mystery, one that adds to how weird this guy is. If the brain couldn't go into the head, then why not place the vat on the shoulders of the suit? That way, Krang would at least be eye level with his enemies. Instead, they have to look down towards the suit's junk and find a talking brain instead. You know, we don't think it gets weirder than this. Which brings us to the end. Which of these characters do you think is the weirdest? Do you like that they're so off the wall, or do you prefer a more menacing villain for our heroes to face off against? Which bizarre cartoon villain did we leave out of this list, and which would you say isn't weird at all? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more videos like